For any of y'all who grew up in the South, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say brim. So what exactly is a brim? Spelled B-R-E-A-M, but pronounced brim. Well, it's a broad family that encompasses several sunfish, like a pumpkin seed or red ear or long ear or green sunfish, and yes, a bluegill too. Pretty much what we call panfish. And generally speaking, all panfish are sunfish, but not all sunfish are panfish. Take the largemouth bass. That is in the Centrarchidae family, so technically yes, it is a sunfish, but I really don't know anybody that would consider a largemouth bass a panfish. So there you go, my science lesson on the taxonomy of panfish and sunfish and what I grew up calling a brim. Which brings me to today's pattern. Tom Lentz, a Florida fly fisherman and tyer, pretty well known for some of his warm water panfish and crappie flies. He is credited with several pretty cool warm water panfish flies. And he's got 3 in particular that caught my eye, what he calls his big 3 bluegill flies, which are the brim fly, the panfish polecat, and the one I'm going to tie for you today called the Gill Getter. Actually, I'm doing a slight variation of his Gill Getter. The original was a chartreuse body, and I'm going to use a fluorescent orange. But regardless of what colors you pick, I think this is still a pretty cool fly. And for any of y'all out there who target panfish, I think y'all are going to like it. So there it is in the vise, a Gill Getter. Now I know it does look kind of like a topwater bug, but Tom Lentz designed this as a nymph. And sizes for this, whatever you tie your panfish flies on. And I'm going kind of big. This is an 8 1x long. If I was tying this for anything other than bluegill, I might go a little bit smaller and a 10 or 12. And I am using a thicker thread. This is a 140 denier, and I'm using a fluorescent orange because that's the body color I'm going to use. So go ahead and take a base down to the bend. Now the first thing I'm going to catch in is a tuft of moose mane hair. And I did put it in my stacker. Let's see how that did. Okay, it looks fine. And if you don't have a moose mane hair, I'm sure you could get away with a bucktail. It just probably wouldn't stack as well. So let's don't use all that, maybe that much right there. It's not a real long tail. And here's another reason I'm using this thicker thread. Is this stuff will flare on you, and I don't really want the tail part to flare. So I've got 2 wraps right there, and I'm gonna go back with a couple of medium wraps just to try and get that tail to lay down. Now I can go with a tighter wrap up forward and pull it down pretty tight. So let's pull this up. Now we can take our thread up to the front. Now we're going to tie in our legs before we wrap our body, but we want to catch in our chenille up front. So let's go ahead and catch this in up here, and this will give us just a little bit more of a bulky body. So let's wrap this down to the back. I'm going to go ahead and snip this little tag end right there off. And I'm going to leave my thread in the middle, and I'm going to catch in my legs next. And here's where I'm kind of cheating a little bit. This is 1 strand, about 10 inches of a white rubber leg. And I'll fold it over once on itself and then twice. So really now I've got 4 strands right here, and I'm going to catch them in with 2 on each side. So let's catch it in with just a couple of really loose wraps at first so we can get them positioned. 2 on each side is what's going to look good. Okay, I think that's fine looking right there, and these legs are going to kind of go all over the place before we're done. So a couple of tight wraps right there, readjust if necessary, just make sure you're coming off each side. Okay, I think we're fine right there. Now this might be the only tricky part of this fly, is wrapping this chenille up and then kind of going around these legs, and then a couple of wraps up through the middle there. But just take your time, and it's not that hard. Now when you get up to the legs, we'll put a couple wraps in the middle of them. And I forgot to take my thread back up to the front, so let's go ahead and do that now. And now just finish the front of it with these wraps right up here in front of these legs. Now we can just snip these off, open those up, and open this side over here. We'll cut the legs to size when we're done. But the next thing we're going to do is grab all this moose mane hair and try to keep these hairs parallel to each other and just pull them up front, and then, you know, kind of pull them tight, and then just catch it off with a couple wraps right here. And this is another reason why having a thicker thread helps out right here. You can really dog this down, get some tight wraps right here, and then we're going to snip this off pretty short. It's not a devil bug. We're going to cut this really as short as we can get it right here. And now let's just pull everything back and then wrap our head. Take it right to the eye and then ramp it back up. And as this is a nymph, don't be afraid to put a big old head here. I think the color of it is, you know, one of the prominent features, kind of the hot spot here. Now let's take a look at these legs, adjust them if you need to, and trim them to size. I want them kind of short, you know, not real short, but almost like you would a topwater bug. So there we go, drop a head cement and this thing's ready to go in your box. I think it's a pretty cool looking pattern, and again, the color combinations you can use for this are almost endless. So thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.